let's take a look at the equipment you have here. First, some of this you already know, like your probe,
Y'all are allowed to open your kits and look as well.
your dissecting needle, right? We won't be doing a lot with probes and dissecting needles from here on out, although some of you might. So if you're finding you're having a really hard time with your rat because it's wiggling around on you because they're small, you might want to take a couple of these dissecting needles and stab them around the animal to make a corral so it can't wiggle. It's dead. I mean, just roll around as you move it. Don't worry, it won't be, you're not working with live animals in here. Here are two sets of forceps. The ones we're going to use are the smaller ones, okay? These larger ones are macro tooth tissue forceps. These smaller ones are fine tooth tissue forceps. You'll notice they're different from tweezers, and you can see with the macro tooth probably easier, but you've got these, well, I might even say 3 cusps, 1 here and 2 here, that are glued with each other to give you a good grip. Since we're working with teeny tiny little rats, we're going to be working with the micro tooth tissue forceps. And these work really good for giving you the tension to pull the skin, the fascia, and all that. The reason why we're learning on skin is the next step is to remove the hypodermis, which is a little tougher because you're right on top of the muscle. And then the third step is to remove the connective tissue sheath covering the muscle organ called the epimysium. And so that's going to be tough. And these fine tooth tissue forceps do that nicely for you, but you've got to get the technique down to get ready for that. Those of you working on sharks, you'll have to use these once you get started on the skin because that skin's really tight. A few of you will feel like you got a workout in your thumb muscle and your forearm muscles in particular when you get done with that one. Here's your scalpel handle. This is number 3 handle. We've got a ridged, raised surface here. That's actually a traction pad for you to work against, okay? I'll show you how to use this in a minute, but since Jenny put this on the quiz, these are fine point tissue scissors. And we're going to use them a little differently than what you're used to using them for. Now today, we're not going to do much with them at all. Okay, we're really going to do more work with the scissors when we get into blood vessels later on. By the way, since Donya's the furthest away, can you hear me okay with this mask? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the way you hold this is different, because in grade school and all that, we held scissors like this to cut little snow spiders and things like that. But this doesn't give you a lot of precision. Remember, the rat isn't much bigger than this area. So it's like taking those big trimmers you use in the garden and using them on surgery on a person. So we want to go in there as precise as possible. So by using your thumb and ring finger, putting the weight on your middle finger and then your index finger against where the 2 blades meet, that gives you a much more precise grip. Now some of you are going to have trouble doing that, so there's a kind of in-between way where you do it like this, where thumb, middle finger, and then use your index finger. But really it's better to rest the weight on your middle finger. That way you're going to go in as precise as possible. And most of the work we're going to be doing with the scissors isn't even cutting. It's going to be separating. So we're going to stick them in closed between 2 blood vessels. Open, close, open, close, open. And that's going to break the collagen that binds the blood vessels together. When we get into visceral later on, we're going to see that the outer tunics of blood vessels and nerves are all made up of collagenous tissue. And the collagen fibers wrap around each other so the whole unit is better protected. You're going to be separating those units, so you're going to use separating technique primarily, okay? And that's why it's called that. All right, so this is the part where you've got to be careful so you don't cut yourselves. Some of you are scared to death of this thing right now. That's fine. You're not as likely to hurt yourself today because you're all scared about this. And no one wants to be the person I walk over to the health center. But later on, when your hands are wet and you've been dissecting, that's when it's much more of a danger. So be careful about that. So the way you hold this is a lot different than the way you would think from some Wes Craven movies and things like that. You're going to hold it more like a paintbrush for a painting. Okay, for painting portraits, not painting a house. So you're going to put the scalpel down on your middle finger. Your thumb will be on the other side with the ridge here, and you're guiding it with your index finger. So see, a lot different than what you thought, and kind of trying to get used to the angle. But looking down on it like so, when we work with it, we're not going to be holding the blade down on this tissue. Or actually the blade's gonna be held away. And the way in which that works is that you're gonna be pulling on the skin with your forceps. And you're gonna slice through the collagen bundles, which is where the skin is attached to the muscle. So it's almost like shaving. You know, like when you shave with a 2-blade, the first blade pulls on the whisker or hair to make it easier for the second blade to come through? Forceps hand's like the first blade. And I'll show you that with the chicken thigh in a moment. But you're going to pull, come in at a 45-degree angle, keep your forceps hand moving with you as you go to keep that tension going. That's where a lot of mistakes happen. You're doing a great job, you got that tension, you're sliding through it, and your blade's going, your forceps hand isn't. So you lose the tension. And then your blade slips. But that's the nice thing about having the blade pointed up towards the collagen. If you slip, you're slipping into the skin that we don't care about. No one's making rat mittens for a new burning meat, right? If you have it pointed the wrong way and you slip, you're gonna cut into the muscle you're trying to save. So that's gonna be part of it too. And that's where you're gonna take a lot of time to learn, is holding it at a 45-degree angle. I know it sounds really obvious how you do it, but it isn't. Some of you are gonna be using just the point, some are gonna have it flat at a 0-degree angle. It takes a little bit of practice to get that down, okay? So, the blade. This blade is sharper than most blades you've come in contact with, okay? So be very, very careful with this blade. This particular blade looks like it was here back during the first Bush administration, but it's still good. So this is a carbon steel blade, sharpened to a very, very fine edge here. So be careful with it. You'll notice it's shaped kind of like a hunting knife blade, right? It's really only sharp on this side. This side, the bottom here, the back, that's all dull. So I know this sounds really obvious. Handle the blade by the non-cutting surface. Don't grab it by the sharp point. Okay, I know it sounds obvious, but you'd be amazed how many stupid mistakes people make because they're stressed and worried about their dissection. Now, a couple of things you'll notice. The back of the blade is at an angle. If you go here and look at the receptacle portion of the handle, it's also at an angle. So those two angles should line up. We also have a hole in the center here. Kind of looks like a beer bottle. That goes on this raised part of the receptacle portion of the blade. So when you put the blade on the handle, you want to be really careful as you do this. And this one may not fit, but you slide it down like so until it clicks. All right? Some of them won't fit perfectly because there are little machine errors that occur when they're manufacturing. So let us know, we'll just swap your blade out, it's not that big a deal. But then you'll have it like this. So I think the first thing I want to do before we go any further is each of you put your blade on and let us know if you're nervous or having trouble. Okay?
So